Welcome to this video series on online business strategy. Hi, I'm Trudy Rankin, and in today's video, I'm talking with Nick Thakor-Lal, the founder of one of my favorite online tools, LeadsHook. In this video, Nick talks about getting customer feedback and deciding what you're going to do with that customer feedback, which makes all the difference between success and failure when you're building a software company. But it's also relevant to any kind of business when you're looking to try and make sure that what you're doing is actually working for your customers. Let's get started. I think that's a really, really important point. Because if you think back to when you first started LeadsHook and you got started, you started using it for yourself, and then you started sharing it around, showing it to people and getting feedback. What were people's response, and what did you do about their responses?
Okay, so the very first few guys I showed, I'm not going to mention any names. Basically, the feedback was it's crap. I'm not interested. And so then my next question was, well, what about it aren't you interested in? And almost always, the feedback wasn't so much on the strategy or the capability that the product allowed you to do. It was the aesthetics of it, which well, it shouldn't have been a surprise, and it wasn't so much of a surprise, where I should have been careful to pick people who are strategic marketers and not necessarily those who wanted everything to be pixel perfect. And I've seen that. So for example, I should have shown it to my good friend Goha, who doesn't care one bit what anything looks like. He'll run the ugliest campaigns in the world. Versus, there are people out there who just like, listen, that pixel is it's one pixel off to the right. And they'll pick it up and they just can't get themselves to just go live. It has to move one pixel. So I think the important part here is like, show it to everybody. But if you're someone who's easily kind of like offended or how dare you? How dare you steal my business? If you're of that sort of if you take it personally, then don't. Be very careful who you show it to, obviously, because it may take you down a downward spiral, which really is not helpful. So knowing who you share it to matters. I think in hindsight, what I would do differently is frame it much better before you show it.
Right. Yeah. And so give people a framework.
It's very much a prototype. It's not the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but let's talk about a marketing problem that you have, and let's see how we would solve it using this. So become more outcome focused, which I wasn't. Otherwise, because what ends up seeing is you don't ideate, or you don't get feedback on what this does. You get feedback on what it looks like.
Yes, right.
And so it's very superficial, and you got knocked back, not because it doesn't have value, but you got knocked back because the exterior of the car is really, really ugly. Rather than looking at the very comfortable seats inside.
Yes.
If I can use that sort of a simple analogy there. Yeah. And so a lot is said. So I guess to go back to sort of like, the whole lean startup movement that's come about, I think it's fairly flawed. You can really end up, throwing good ideas out, because it's at least and I'm not really sure if this is Eric Ries or the practitioners or the guys who are teaching it, if it's the intention. I don't think it is, but what it's ended up being is, in execution, I'm seeing it's almost like a laundry list to go through as fast as possible and throw it out, when I think sometimes you need to sort of sit on the idea and let it sort of brew in your head to come up with a better variation of it. Because to start from zero again is so much more expensive. So so say, for example, if you put 80% of the effort in, but you only learn 20% of or you've only learned 20%, then the next 20 will give you the biggest insights ever. And that's what happens in most projects is that you kind of like blind about things. A lot of activity happens and you get things to like 80%, but it's so like the foundation's done, the building's done, the interior design hasn't been done yet. And so you look at the building and you're like, it's an ugly building, but guess what? Like the bulk of the work is done. And so it's a little bit more effort to get it to 95%. Now you're going to get a much more valid feedback, or now it's worthy of market feedback. While the 20% version isn't, but you've done 80% of the work. Yes. And because it's non-linear, right? A lot of these things are non-linear, where you'll like, for example, in the case of LeadZoom, right? I remember in the first 18 months, like there was no user interface to look at.
I can vouch for that because I was one of your earlier adopters.
Yeah,
just for our listeners, I love LeadZoom, but at the very beginning it was very basic, but still functional. It still had a lot of functionality in it. And the thing that I really appreciated was the fact that you just kept reaching out for feedback.
Yeah, and that was it, because I like to me, I'm more functional over form kind of a person, and so it works. It can handle a lot of traffic. That's a tick. Let's go. While I know now, most of the world does not operate that way. You know, like you need to see the nice lobby.
Right? Exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
So I get it. When you log in, you need to be wowed with a nice interface. You know, and I get it. But the point is that what are you going to sacrifice, right? Obviously, you can't do everything at once. So to me, the discussion that I had with my team was, I said, well, do we create a platform that just works and works for guys who are doing serious traffic, so i.e. the advanced user, or do we go something or we sacrifice functionality and performance and create something that's very, nice and fruity, and not have it work for anybody except the guy who wants to do 10 leads a month. And to me, the 10 leads a month part was already serviced. There were tons of WordPress plugins. There were tons of, cheap softwares that were already out there